I'm Steve Rudolph. I'm co-owner of Historic Prison Tours of Jackson. This prison, we're sitting right now in Michigan's first permanent cell block. They started building this in 1837, and it was the only prison that Michigan had for the first 40 years. You were here to be punished, not as punishment. This was a place where you were punished severely for the smallest infraction. One of those infractions was talking. You were under the code of silence when you were here. If you were caught talking to another inmate, you could have been hung up and whipped. You could have been put in solitary confinement. There's any number of different, and some of them brutal punishments that went on here. But you also could have been subject to some of the 20th or 19th century diseases. Measles back then was a death sentence for a lot of people. Yellow fever, tuberculosis, dysentery. This prison cell block here held 328 cells. There was never any central heat. There was never any plumbing. There was never any electricity. And they had 300, and there was never any ventilation, but they had 328 buckets to use as toilets, emptied once a day, whether they needed it or not. They got a 2-year sentence, and it turned into a death sentence. But they did say that you could go to solitary confinement and live the rest of your life in solitary. So that took it from a 3-second hanging to a 6 or 8 month death sentence as you slowly went insane and then died in solitary confinement. Yeah, I tell people I've never seen a ghost personally. I've been doing this for over 10 years now, but I've seen people that have. I've seen people when we go down into the solitary confinement area, you can just tell that they're nervous. They're looking around and they're like they got ants in their pants or something. They want to get out of there. And I've had several of them that just say, they can just feel it down there. And even my son, we built a mock cell down there, and my son at that time was like 20 years old. He's 6'2" and 200 pounds, and he was down there helping me. And I told him, I got to go to Home Depot and get something. I'll be back in 15, 20 minutes, and you can stay here and do this and this and this. And he says, ain't no way I'm staying down here by myself. He says, this place creeps me out. And I think a lot of people that go down in that area, they just feel that creeped out feeling. Now, there's other people that I've had people walk down there and they'll turn the last corner to come into that area, and I've seen them spin on their heel and turn right around and go right back up the stairs. So, and they said they're not going back down there. And some people won't even venture down the stairs. So I'm not saying they saw anything, but they will tell you they just don't feel like it's just not something that they want to do. Probably the spookiest thing I've had happen while I was there, though, was when we had a service dog on our tour. And this dog had been perfect gentleman all the way around this place. We'd gone everywhere. He'd sit while I'd talked and told all the stuff that we tell. And we got down into solitary confinement. There's probably 8 or 10 people with us. And this dog is he's sitting right beside me. And I'm talking, and all of a sudden I hear this. And I look down, and this dog is looking across the aisle there to what is plumbing over there now. And he's just trembling, and the hair on the back of his neck is going up. And he's growling, and everybody steps back, and they're looking at this dog, and they're looking over there, and there's nothing over there. And it lasted 20, 30 seconds, something like that. And all of a sudden, the dog just relaxed, and he was back to normal. And everybody in there, including me, was somewhat spooked out by this. But I've talked to people that have pets here, and they say they'll walk the halls here 100 times and not have any problem, but the next time they walk, the dog will jump in front of them and it'll start barking, and there's nothing there that they can see, but the dog's going nuts. So Yeah, strange things happen. I talked to a guy just last week, and he had 2 dogs. I was asking him about his dogs, and he was telling me the same story I've heard from other people about, the dogs going nuts. But he says, they're in my room because he lives here. And he says, I paint. And he says, I'll lay my paintbrush down and it disappears. He said, I found one on top of a cabinet one day. He says, I don't put paintbrushes on top of a cabinet. He said, but that's where I found it. How else would it get there? So, there's a lot of stories like that in this place. Best way to take a tour here is to go online to historicprisontours.com. You can book a tour for a small group up to 15 people. We run them every Friday and Saturday up through usually the middle of November. Also, if you are a bus tour operator, we would love to have you. We do tours for buses all the time. And not only that, we'll set up your lunch either here or in one of the restaurants here in Jackson. And we also do a step-on guided tour of historic Jackson on the bus. So 3 different types of tours, and easiest way to do it is get hold of Steve at historicprisontours.com, or you can book at our site.